For a long time, silence carried weight. It wasn't just the absence of sound or thought. It meant something. Silence was treated as an achievement, a goal, a sign that something important was happening. When the mind went quiet, it was noticed immediately. There it is. This is it. This must matter. Silence became highlighted. It was contrasted with noise, compared to thought, framed as better than. And once it was framed that way, it stopped being simple. Silence became another experience to monitor, another state to maintain, another moment to interpret. But as the inner narrator continues to loosen, something unexpected happens. Silence loses its importance, not because it disappears, but because nothing is pointing at it anymore. There are moments when the mind is quiet, and there are moments when it isn't, and neither one stands out. Silence arrives without announcement, and it leaves the same way. At first, this can feel anticlimactic. We were taught to expect something from silence: peace, depth, clarity. So when silence shows up and nothing special happens, there can be confusion. Wasn't this supposed to feel different? But that expectation belonged to the narrator. Silence itself doesn't promise anything. It doesn't deliver insight. It doesn't confer status. It doesn't signal progress. It's just the absence of unnecessary activity. And when it's not treated as special, it becomes natural. Silence starts appearing in ordinary moments, while walking, while sitting, while doing something simple, not as a contrast to thought, just as part of the rhythm. Thought comes and goes. Silence comes and goes. Neither one dominates. There's no effort to hold silence in place. No disappointment when it fades. No excitement when it appears. It's just there. And then it isn't. This removes a subtle pressure. The pressure to be quiet. The pressure to reduce thought. The pressure to stay in a particular state. Without that pressure, silence feels different. Not heavier, lighter. It doesn't require attention. It doesn't ask to be noticed. It doesn't need to be preserved. It's simply available when it's available. One of the quiet shifts here is the end of contrast. Before, silence only existed in opposition to noise. Noise was bad. Silence was good. That contrast created tension. You were always moving towards silence or away from noise. Now that movement stops. Noise is just sound. Thought is just activity. Silence is just space. None of them need to be managed. They coexist without conflict. This changes how stillness is experienced. Stillness no longer signals something important. It's not a marker. It's not an arrival. It's just the body not moving for a moment, and movement returning when it needs to. There's no hierarchy, no preference. You don't linger in stillness. You don't rush out of it either. You let the moment decide. This is deeply grounding, because the nervous system no longer treats silence as a task. It doesn't brace when things go quiet. It doesn't search for meaning. It rests. The mind also stops scanning silence for content. Before, when things got quiet, the mind leaned forward, waiting, listening, expecting insight. Now, when silence appears, nothing leans forward. Nothing waits. Nothing expects. Silence becomes empty in the most ordinary way. And that ordinariness is what makes it sustainable. It's not an altered state. It's not fragile. It doesn't require protection. You can think without losing it. You can speak without breaking it. It's not something you're inside of. It's just the background when nothing else is happening. This changes how quiet moments are remembered. Before, silence was memorable. It stood out. It was marked as significant. Now, silence leaves little trace. Not because it's unimportant, because it's not separate from life. It doesn't need to be remembered. It doesn't need to be referenced. It did its job by being what it was. Then it passed. This also changes how people relate to solitude. Solitude used to be associated with quiet, with space, with silence as something sought. Now, solitude is just being alone. It doesn't have to be quiet. It doesn't have to be reflective. You can be alone with sound, with movement, with thought, and it's still solitude. Silence isn't required. This frees solitude from expectation. You don't need to make alone time productive or meaningful. You don't need to use it well. You just occupy it. This makes quiet moments less rare. Not because silence increases, but because it's no longer filtered through significance. You don't have to notice it for it to exist. And because you're not watching for it, it shows up more often, like something that was always there once you stop looking. This also affects how meditation is experienced. Meditation used to be about silence, about quieting the mind, about entering a state. Now, meditation becomes unnecessary in that way, not because it's rejected, but because silence no longer needs to be accessed intentionally. It happens on its own. And when it doesn't, nothing is wrong. You're not trying to return to silence. You're not measuring distance from it. You're not using it as a reference point. Silence and sound are both allowed. This creates a sense of neutrality, not indifference. Neutrality, a sense that things don't need to be adjusted. They don't need to be improved. They don't need to be optimized. They're fine. Silence that isn't special is deeply compatible with ordinary life. You don't need ideal conditions. You don't need time alone. You don't need to remove distractions. Silence appears in the middle of noise, between sounds, between thoughts, between movements. And it disappears just as easily. Nothing holds onto it. Nothing pushes it away. This also reduces self-consciousness. Before, when silence appeared, it often triggered self-awareness. I'm quiet now. I'm calm. I'm present. Those thoughts turned silence into a performance. Now, silence doesn't create identity. You don't become someone who is silent. You're just someone in a moment where nothing is happening internally. And that moment passes. There's also less fear of losing silence. Before, when thought returned, there could be disappointment. It's gone. I lost it. Now, thought returning is just thought returning. Nothing was lost. Nothing needs to be recovered. Silence isn't something you have. It's something that happens when it happens. This removes a subtle cycle of seeking. Seeking quiet, seeking peace, seeking stillness. Those pursuits kept attention oriented toward the future, toward a better state. Without them, attention rests where it is. Not because it's trained to, because there's nowhere else it needs to go. This creates a gentle stability, not the stability of holding a state, the stability of not needing one. You're no longer dependent on silence for okayness. Okayness isn't conditional. It doesn't require a quiet mind. It doesn't require a calm body. It doesn't require anything in particular. This is a significant shift, because many people unconsciously rely on silence as reassurance. When things are quiet, they feel safe. When they aren't, they feel unsettled. Now, safety doesn't depend on quiet. It depends on trust. Trust in responsiveness. Trust in life's ability to move without supervision. Trust that nothing needs to be held still. This trust allows silence to be just another part of the day, like light changing, like temperature shifting, not something you aim for, not something you avoid, just something that happens. And when silence isn't special, it becomes deeply available. Because nothing is trying to keep it. Nothing is trying to use it. Nothing is trying to turn it into something else. It's free to come and go. And in that freedom, it stops being fragile. It stops being rare. It stops being impressive. It becomes familiar, unremarkable, and quietly supportive. Silence that isn't special doesn't promise insight. It doesn't deliver transformation. It doesn't change who you are. It simply allows things to settle when they settle, and to move when they move. This is where quiet stops being a destination and becomes a background condition, sometimes present, sometimes not, always allowed. And from this place, another shift becomes clear. Ordinary tasks, fully enough, which is where we'll go next.